Hi, and welcome
to the Faxon Blog and Podcast. This has been a recurring topic. It's kind of ironic. We started this show in February, and so we got maybe 2 shows in before the pandemic hit, right. And then all the civil unrest stuff, and then the big spike in firearms and ammo sales and all the things that go along with it. And part of this, as you know, there are so many new gun owners. Now, this wasn't necessarily on the list, but I know that my coworker here, Kurt, had to go to Premier early in the pandemic because he had ordered something, and he had just mentioned the amount of people that were there, just like wanting to go to the range and try it. I mean, how have you guys been able to handle that, and kind of what have some of the processes been as far as wanting to welcome new people in, but also you got to deal with how many people are allowed in the store during the pandemic. You also have to deal with all the social distancing stuff and whatever else comes down from the governor. So what has that played out like for Premier?
Yeah. So basically, obviously, safety is a huge thing for us, especially with new gun owners that maybe have never shot before at all. Or we had a lot of people buying firearms that had never even picked up a gun before. Right. So we're kind of fighting that uphill battle, being extremely busy, limited on range space because we had to use basically every other lane for a while, right? So it was what we kind of created a new thing for us, which is a personal safety officer. So we just kind of schedule with new shooters, and then one of our staff takes them out and shoots with them. That way they kind of get more comfortable. They're following all safety rules. We can kind of walk them through it. Yeah. A big thing is we use our rental guns as well. So you're able to try out a bunch of different rental guns before you end up making a purchase. That way you're not stuck in with a gun that, hey, it looked nice, but it doesn't work for me. Yeah, absolutely. So when people are, whether they're first-time buyers or maybe it's their first time buying in the social climate that we're in, and what are some of the things that they can expect? I mean, are you experiencing more delays in background checks? I mean, what are some things that people may need to be cognizant of when they're making their next purchase? So for us personally, we're taking about an hour for gun sales lately, just because of the sheer amount of volume, people waiting to pick out a gun off the rack, the whole social distancing thing, the waiting in lines. And then the background checks, they take about 30 minutes typically, but then they could come back delayed after that. So, you could wait in the store for about an hour and then not be able to leave with your gun right then and there, and then have to come back in when you get the call back that it is a proceed after the delay. Got it. So what are some of the common mistakes that you see when people are coming in, and whether they're first-time gun buyers, or if they've done it before, or it's been a while since they've done, all the paperwork, what are some common kind of fill-out mistakes that you see that people need to be aware of before they come in? So the biggest one is going to be the driver's license thing. A lot of people don't realize they move, or, obviously they realize they move, but don't realize that they didn't update everything. Right. So your address needs to be current on your driver's license for us to be able to use that as ID to buy a gun. So if you move and you don't update your driver's license, or the BMV doesn't print you a new one, we got to have some kind of document that proves where you live, if that's your current residence. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest one we see. Now there's a list of supplemental documents that you can get to make that work. Right. But that's probably the biggest one. The next biggest one would probably just not be reading the questions correctly, which we can kind of, I don't want to say guide you through, but we can say, hey, can you reread number 21 or whatever? Right. But just they're really wordy, you know, and a lot of big words for people that are, have never done it before, might be nervous filling out a form. Right. That kind of thing. Yeah, that is something that I think is quite interesting. And we've had him on a couple of times. He'll be joining us again, Dan Zimmerman from The Truth About Guns. And then we've had Sean Maloney from Second Call Defense, both a great news mind for 2A and a great legal mind for 2A. And, one of the things that we've talked about on the show before is that a lot of first time gun buyers who maybe in the past thought, that kind of went with the crowd and thought, oh, well, it's so easy to get a gun, and that's why we have gun violence and everything. And they're realizing, and I think
we're kind of lucky in Ohio. I think we get a lot more out of our 2A rights than maybe, folks in California or Maryland or whatever. But I think people are starting to realize more, hey, there's more that goes into this. If I'm going to go buy a gun from a reputable dealer, not just like hawk something or buy something at a trade or a swap show or something like that there's more that goes into it. Have you witnessed people that have been kind of like perked up by that? Like, oh gosh, I didn't know there was so much that I had to do, paperwork and documentation and all this. For sure.
Going back to the whole driver's license thing, they're like, well, I updated it with the BMV. Why isn't this okay? Well, I don't know that you've updated it with the BMV. So like, I just need, and they don't understand why it's such a big deal for that. And then they're like, what do you mean you're delayed? Well, I mean, that's just how it works sometimes. Like, I don't have any control over it. So I think that's kind of a shock to people.
Hi and welcome to the Faxon Blog and Podcast.